Okay, hello everyone. So you may not have been expecting to see me on our Q&A this afternoon. So I just wanted to give a heads up that Brian is experiencing some technical difficulties because of the Starlink outage. And so he will be trying to join us here shortly. Oh, it looks like he might be popping on. There we go. So Brian, I'm going to pass
I
the
actually
clip
made
over
it.
to you. Yeah, you did. I'm so happy. So I will let you take over.
Thanks, Carrie. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate everybody joining this, and sorry about that little interruption there. But it looks like we're on and live. And Luciano, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me here. Pleasure.
Absolutely. So, real quick for everybody that's listening, obviously, Jurassic Lake is a top 5, destination. Everybody's heard about it. It certainly is the top of the list for many, many anglers. And so I thought, we've had a ton of people actually go down and visit your lodge. We do a hosted trip every single year for the last 4 or 5 years. We're big fans of it, but we also understand there's a lot of details that go into this trip, from flights to the shuttles, passports, all of the flair that's required, language barriers, etc. So it's a great opportunity to just do a webinar. I just to get people on the interactive. I know and just kind of go over all of the language, kind of go deep and open it up. Some cheap scale for
He's coming back. His signal.
Okay, inevitably I am back, filling in. Luciano, where exactly did Brian leave off?
Well, he was talking about, kind of like talking about his trips to Jurassic, and kind of like saying for him it's a top 5 trip in the world, and he's been doing a bunch of hosted trips. So more or less he left it there, and then we started losing his voice or signal.
Okay, well, no worries. Happy to pick it back up there. So, Luciano, first off, I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to jump on with us today and discuss your amazing programs. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and how Estancia Laguna Verde kind of came to you and came to be as we know it today?
Well, as the introduction of my name is Luciano Alba. I was born and raised in the center of Argentina, a province called La Pampa, and there are not much fishing. But since basically being in my mother's tummy, I've been going to Patagonia all my life, and my father taught me to fly fish when I was a very young kid. Even though we didn't live in a fishing area, we every year we would travel many times a year to fish in Patagonia. So I became a completely fanatic as my father of fly fishing. A very passionate angler, and so is my father. And then as a profession, I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney, same as my father. But in 2008, we traveled with my father, to go fishing, in this kind of like unheard place, a friend of mine told me about. And so kind of like by coincidence, we ended up going into Stroll Lake or Jurassic Lake. That back then, it wasn't known at all. It was even for Argentines, it wasn't known at all. So that was we went for the first time in February 2008, and we fell in love with the place, with the remote area. The very, we call it for me it's a harsh beauty. I really like. You really feel alone in the world. At the same time, you have that very incredible waters of Jurassic. So it's a mix of fresh water, but has things about the clarity of the water that makes it similar Caribbean type water, so very special. And I had fish all over Argentina and never came to a place that was like that. So yeah, with my father, we immediately fell in love. And then on the way out of the estancia, we were talking with the owner about trying to buy it, which we made it happen maybe around May 2008. And in September, we were already building the lodge, the first structures we built. And by December 2008, we started Estancia Laguna Verde fishing program. So, well, then, over the years, been working with that and trying to make it better and better. And so, yeah, it's been so my lawyer profession, became second and third, and now I almost no practice, although we keep it as office open. Myself, I don't work anymore as an attorney, as a lawyer. So, well, it was, incredible for us, very much a life-changing experience or a life-changing project, because all of a sudden we became, more and more attached to fly fishing and, trying to build a lodge. And then we started doing other programs as well in other parts of Argentina. But that was, for us, that's always our baby, our first child, we would say.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that story and just the passion that you have for not just the fishing, but I would say the client experience. We've sent lots of people your way, and every time that they come back, they're always raving about the hospitality and just how personable you and all of your team are. Could you tell me, so the relationship between Estancia Laguna Verde and Got Fishing kind of predates my time with Got Fishing, but could you tell me a little bit about how that relationship came to be, and I guess how you've known Brian since that started?
Well, we started, working with Brian, many years ago. I would say more than 10 years at least. He came for the first time, being friends of, how it happens many times, word of mouth. So he came through, recommendation of an angler that mentioned this to him. And so he contacted us. And, well, he came with a small group the first time. And, we, over the years, we've, had many, encounters. And, luckily he enjoyed our program and also, our part of the world. Also we enjoyed a lot, working with Got Fishing, how he, takes care of all details, and he's like a hands-on person or agents, which for us, it's very important. We like to work with people that, in a way, have the same passion for fishing, for trying to do, the extra effort to have everything, perfect for the clients. So maybe perfect doesn't exist, but as close as perfect as possible. And so, well, that's how we, in a way, became very much attached, and enjoy working with him a lot. And same as you, Kari, always a pleasure. And well, that's how. And over the years, it's amazing how this, being us in Argentina, you in the USA, in a way, you become friends over, the phone, video calls. But every time you meet, it's like your friendship and your relationship evolves year after year, and that's how it happened. And hopefully many more years working together.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Luciano. That's very, very kind of you to say. We definitely we enjoy working with your team as well. You and Sylvia are always taking care of us and our clients, so very much appreciated. So for the people that might be a little bit newer, we know that Jurassic Lake, aka Lago Strabel, is in Argentina. But could you describe a little bit about the region itself of where the lake is at in Argentina, so people can get kind of an idea of what that's like down there?
Yeah, sure. Yes. So, if you think about Argentina, it's quite rather unlike the US, which is more like wide. Argentina is more like not narrow, and in a way it goes quite down to the south. And so Patagonia would be from the center of Argentina down to the south. And 4 provinces are Patagonia in the continent. So we divide Patagonia in 4 regions, which is North Patagonia, Central Patagonia, and where we are, which is South Patagonia. And then you have way down south from us, you have the island of Tierra del Fuego, okay? And so from those regions, Estancia Laguna Verde is in the province of Santa Cruz, which is the most southern province of the continent in Argentina, and which all along our border, we border with Chile. So we are close to the border, but not that close. And then Jurassic Lake, it's a high plateau of about 1,000 meter or a little more elevation, which is about 3,000 feet or so. Excuse me if I miss, but we use here the metric system. So, but yeah, more or less, I think it is about 3,000 feet above sea level, and it's in a very high plateau, which has these several, not just Jurassic Lake or Strawberry Lake, but also has many smaller lakes, and then you have Barrancoso River, which will be the main tributary or the only tributary of Strawberry Lake. So in a way, in our property, we have Strawberry Lake and Barrancoso River, the only tributary, and then you have many of these smaller lakes or lagoons that are chained by a creek that runs in spring. They are called the chain lakes, and so in this system separated from Strawberry, there's about 15 of those in our property, in our estancia.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. I know that a lot of people enjoy, obviously fishing the lake, but many people have talked about their fun experiences fishing the river as well. So it's definitely a, unique environment to say the least. Could you share a little bit about the history of, the rainbows that exist down there at Jurassic Lake and kind of how they came to be?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so, as a general thing, in all the southern hemisphere, not just Argentina, but, Chile, and same happens with Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, countries that also have trout fishing. None of those countries had trout as native fish. But, because of different immigration, trout were introduced in different areas. So in Argentina, the first introductions happened mostly in northern Patagonia. Some happened in Tierra del Fuego. I think Tierra del Fuego was 1924 or something like that. So, wow. But in more recent times, and for those that history, Strawberry Jurassic came to be quite not so long ago. It happened in 1989. The previous owner of Estancia Laguna Verde introduced fingerlings of rainbow trout at Barrancoso River, So he put fish into Barrancoso River, and those rainbow trout came from the McCloud strain, McCloud from the Northern California River, and so that strain, in a way, some people consider it the most pure of rainbow trout. I don't know about that, but anyway, so the fish, in a way, didn't find a lot of food at Barrancoso River, and one day they decided to run into Strawberry Lake, and in a way they found trout paradise, because Strawberry Lake or Jurassic Lake has a combination of different things that make it for some of the best habitat for trout growth, and in particularly rainbows. And so what happens is that you have water that is rather alkaline, so the pH is a little higher than the average, while at the same time, the water is very pure, that has zero pollution, there are no boats, no motorboats or anything like could in a way spoil it. And of course, southern Patagonia sometimes can be windy, and the wind creates a lot of oxygen in the water. So, and then the temperature being quite down south, you have in a way water temperature, the alkaline water, the wind that oxygenates, the purity of the water, and all those make it for perfect habitat for trout growth, but also has a lot of food, in particularly crustaceans. So the main food sources of this trout that to be so big would be crustaceans. That would be the three main ones are scads, the scad that we have in many parts of the world that have trout and other, and then you have a second type of crustacean that is called copepod, a little smaller, maybe like the size of my little fingernail, quite small, but the same, great food. And then you have even smaller one that is like a microorganism called Daphnias. And so those three, and they are by far, if you take a stomach sample, you find thousands in each trout. And those are basically high protein, food that is available for them, 24/7, in many places. Like you turn a rock, around, from underwater, and it usually has a lot of, scads, copepods, depending on the type of water you are going or the depth of the water. You will find more one or the other. And then Daphnias usually more are into the water column, so they're kind of like moving around, and depends on temperature and other things. It would be more or less up or down in the water column, and that's usually when they usually cloud. They create like balls, and usually when you have that phenomenon, you would see the fish, the trophy fish eating like whales. So they are filter feeding, like a whale, with the open mouth. So that's when you are seeing that. Usually that's because they are eating Daphnia, which is also high protein, great food. So if you take all those things, and put it together, you have a perfect habitat for growth of fish, and that's what happens. That's why you have the huge fish.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what the lake is known for, right? That's how it got its nickname as Jurassic Lake. But yeah, I mean, incredible. It's pristine down there. They've got great food sources. There's no predators. And then the water being cool and oxygenated like that just makes it where they can blow up in size, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I want to shift gears a little bit here. We have had a couple of questions come in regards to the fishing, which I figure is why a lot of people are tuning into this, and to understand that a little bit more. So a couple of the questions that we got are, what weight fly rods and fly lines do you recommend for Jurassic? And is it mostly sight or blind fishing for the big rainbows?
Okay, so regarding tackle and the most used or recommended rods and lines and setup in general, you would say that, by far the most used, and for a good reason, rods are the 8 weights. Okay, so I think that, I would say that number one recommended rod, and I agree with that, would be an 8-weight rod, either 9 or 10 footer. Then it depends a little bit on your taste. My case, I like better fishing with 9 footers. I prefer that. But like, for example, my father prefers 10 footers. So 9 or 10, very good. For both, you have things, with a 10 footer, your roll cast usually easier, while with the 9-weight, with the 9 footer, maybe better a little bit for if it's windy. But in the end, both works. Usually you want faster action rods. Okay, so because you're sometimes fighting the wind, but also, it's better, playing a big fish. Usually you want that strength in your rod. And then a 7-weight would also work, a 9 too, but yeah, so I would go either 8, but then if not, 7 or 9. And then for lines, mostly we use, I would say 95% of the time, we use floating lines. And, you can go with different brands, but in the end, you want lines that have a front taper, loaded more than the average weight forward line. So we recommend different lines that do that, and the main reason of that is because, with the roll cast, or if it's windy, you can, throw quite a decent cast with not much effort, And so, for example, Rio makes one called the Outbound Short. Then Scientific Anglers have a few, like I think it's called Amplitude. Some other people, buy 1 or 2 weight forward lines over the. For example, if you are using an 8-weight, they would buy a 10-weight weight forward. But in my case, I prefer those lines that are specifically made for those conditions. So either Outbound Short, then Airflow has another one called, I think it's called, what's the name? Sniper. Sniper also a very good line. And I think Wolf makes another one. So different in the market that we recommend. And then when it comes, to leader, you want a maybe 9 or 10 foot leader, and you want to finish with, usually we prefer fluorocarbon. All our guides, are how, we buy in advance of the season, high quality, Japanese fluorocarbon that for us is the best. And in a way, you want that fluorocarbon because many parts of Troll have very sharp rocks. And so sometimes, those bigger fish, they take you into those rocks, and that's when some of those bigger fish are lost, And sometimes you land the fish and you touch the leader and it's all scratch, from the rocks. So having best quality fluorocarbon, for one, less visible, but also it really helps when playing those big fish that are maybe taking you into rocks. And so usually you want to finish maybe 20 pounds at the end, the tippet, you want to have a taper leader, so you can present better the fly. Sometimes presentation can be important, some other times no. And then regarding the question on sight fishing or blind casting, I think it's a mix of both. The guides, if you ask any of our guides, all very experienced, they will always say that their favorite is sight fishing, and I think for most anglers that's the favorite way to fish, and I include myself there. So if we can do sight fishing, that's great, which happens quite a lot because the water is very clear, and so it's not unusual that you see cruising fish or fish that are sometimes stationed just waiting for the food. If there's wind, you have like currents, and so the fish are basically, in a way, it's almost like fishing in a river in those situations. So you cast up from the wind, and the fly comes into the fish, which take it as it would be a river. And then, so we do quite a lot of sight fishing, and that would be the preference. And then when it comes to fish, that would be for Strober Lake or Jurassic. When it comes to fishing Barrancoso River, depends a little bit on the time of the year we are fishing, but mostly, I would say that a 7 weight for Barrancoso is perfect, because although it's a small river, you want to have a good backbone to stop a fish. Sometimes you hook a nice fish, and as soon as they take the fly, they round downstream and they try to take you to the next pool. And so many times, if a fish it's out of the pool, that's I would say 80% lost fish. So once in a while you get lucky and the guy can jump into the rocks and get your fish, but most times if you let the fish slide down to the next pool, that's gone. So for the river, 7 weight. Many people use the same rod, 8 weight for river and lake and the smaller lakes. But if you ask me, and if you have both, I would go with that. And usually you are fishing one guide per 2 anglers, and most anglers usually have at least 2 rods set up. Maybe one for the river, one for the lake, or sometimes if it's more windy, you can use a heavier line one. But if it's calm, you have more of a delicate type line that allows you for a better presentation. So that would be. But you usually you want to, if you have the chance, I would suggest always taking 2 rods and have them set up there, just in case.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great suggestion. Another great question came in from Justin, and he asked, how should an angler practice for the casting challenges presented by Jurassic Lake? And I think you've touched on this a little bit with the wind. Could you tell us a little bit about, some of the challenges of Jurassic and how people might prepare for that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great point. Many times, you are going, and include myself, with my father, we like to travel quite a lot in the off season. And we go fishing all over the world if we can. And many times you show up to a place and you think, well, I should have practiced this, or depends on where you're fishing exactly. And so for me, that's a great question. And so, it doesn't matter where you're fishing, the better caster you are, your experience is going to improve. That's, of course, if you have a good team of guides, the guy will help you, and our teams, of guides, always not just taking you fishing, but also trying to explain to you, different casts we use, improving your roll cast. But I think that, talking about practicing before a trip for Jurassic, for sure you want to, try to, cast, with wind. And for example, you want casting, if it's windy, for example, where you live, I will go that day, and practice, and casting from different angles, casting with a wind on your back, which many times, the guys will try to position the angler in order to fish with as much back wind as possible. But sometimes, you have certain fish, cruising, and it's right on, with the, front wind, and so, you want to, in those cases, you want to practice at home, or, in either at a lake, or in the yard, in your backyard, for example, or in a park, with those conditions. And so in a way, you want to practice with wind from all directions. So, for example, if you are a right-handed person, well, one thing would be to cast with wind from the left. That it's no problem. But then, if I'm right-handed and have a wind on my right, of course, then you will hit yourself. So some people, for example, myself, I usually cast, putting the rod on my left in order not to hit my head, no. But other anglers, turn around and cast like backwards. Some other anglers cast backhanded. Your favorite for those, I think it's a good one to practice those casts, because you will find that the more tools you have in your arsenal, the better results you will get always in any type of fishing. And then practicing the road cast, I think it's a very good one, because many times when you have a tailwind, with those lines that I was mentioning, with a good road cast, sometimes you can cast quite far with a lot less effort. And so that's also a good cast to have in your arsenal, a good road cast, roll the line into the wind, but you get it out there quite a lot. And then, of course, precision, always important in fly fishing. You want to, sometimes when talking about sight fishing, precision comes as a very important thing. And for that, you want, to practice. Some people put like targets or things that, in order to get the fly, some people put those like circles, that you want to cast into those. So whatever your favorite, but I would say practicing precision, that's especially, for example, Barrancoso River, it's important to be precise in some parts, because sometimes the fish are, holding just after a rock. So it makes a difference if you are 1 foot up from the fish or 1 foot down from the head of the fish. That makes one fish is going to see your fly, and one fish is going to maybe even be spooked, for example. So that's very important. Precision, that would be a good one to practice.
Yeah, no, I think that those are great suggestions. And that's definitely something that we recommend as well, because if you're spending, the time and the energy to make your way down to such an amazing fishery, you want to be prepared to, take full advantage of the opportunities that are going to present themselves. So I think those are, great insights.
And then another one, adding to what I was mentioning, many fisheries, like, for example, a usual trout fisherman, like, for example, myself in northern Patagonia, I usually use from a 4 to a 6 weight, with a weight forward line. Okay, so it's not a very either heavy rod or heavy line. While casting, an 8 weight rod, with one of those kind of like more like a shooting type line, has a particular technique. So if you are going with those, or we have also a pretty good loaner tackle room in our lodge, whatever the case. But if you can practice with those rods and lines, better, because in a way, still casting, but has in a way handling that weight, and you can use it into your advantage in a way. How to, sometimes you want to be a little bit more patient on your back cast, so the rod, kind of like bends more with the weight, and you can use it, like a catapult, and throw a lot longer cast by waiting a little longer than the usual, cast with a 4, 5, 6 weight that we all use many times, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely a different ball game when you're sizing up from, like you said, the 4 to 6 weights up into something like an 8 weight. So that definitely makes sense. We're talking a lot about kind of the size of these fish. We know that they're pretty sizable trout down there. What would you say are the average, weights or lengths of some of these rainbows that people are catching when they are down there fishing with your guides?
Well, it's kind of like not so easy to talk about average, but a quite common fish to catch will be anywhere from maybe 6 pounds to 10 pounds. That, many of the catches are around there. And then, we see a lot of 10, 15 pounders. We most times don't measure fish as much as we use, with all our guys have, measure nets. So you can see the length of the fish very easy with the measure net as they net the fish. But, the guys, after many of our guys have been with us for 10 years or more. And so, they can be very, very accurate on the weight. And many times they just as a game they play with their the client, and the angler, and try to guess the weight, and and then we have also scales, so you weigh the fish in the net, and you deduct the weight of the net, which is usually 2 pounds. So basically whatever you get on the scale minus 2 pounds, that will be the weight of the fish. And so usually you see quite a lot of 10-15 pounders, and then 15 or more, those are more exceptional fish, but sometimes anglers may catch several in a week. And so we have at our lodge what we call we have a book, so any fish that is 15 or more pounds is recorded in this book of catches that we have, kind of like
that's
keep
awesome.
track, but also as part of the history of the place. And then if you catch a 20 pounder or more, you go into the Wall of Fame. We have a place where we eat the asados, the barbecues. So we have a big wall there, and any fish that's been caught, by guests that's been 20 or more pounds, your photo goes into that one, with the date and your name. Okay, so also as part of the history of the lodge,
Yeah, that's really special. I had heard about the Wall of Fame, and I don't think I'd heard about the book, but yeah, what a feat to catch a fish that sizable. 15 pounds is already insane to think about, but yeah, 20 pounds, wow, definitely makes sense why you have the Wall of Fame.
Yeah, and then for example, usually a 15 pounder, a little bigger, could be maybe 28 to 30 inches. And as they're closing into 20 pounds, usually are maybe 30, 31 inches. And most times a 20 pounder will be 32 inches, maybe a little less or more. So we've seen a few 20 pounders that have been 30 and a half inches, for example. But some of the times you have a little longer fish that will be 33. But most times a 32 inch would be a 20 pounder. And then, for example, last season, biggest fish was 25, I think, and was 34 inches, for example. So still are not very long fish, but they are very, very deep. They are quite deep and have big shoulders. So so that's why we use more. I think using scales and weight is more accurate than using length.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're definitely just very big fish. Another side that I wanted to discuss with you was a little bit about, I guess, the overall experience at Estancia Laguna Verde. Like we touched on earlier, I know you guys have such a huge focus on, the client experience, just all the way around. Could you tell me a little bit about the program? I guess from the time that guests show up from the, I guess, at the airport to kind of their week staying with your team?
Sure, yes. Well, so, in order to come to Estancia Laguna Verde, you need to fly first to Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. And then, anglers connect to the local flight airports. Usually you need to do a transfer from one airport, the international, to the local flights airport, which is 45 minutes from one to the other. And so it's an easy connection that we help, the guests do it. And then, you fly into a town which is way down south. It's called El Calafate, which is a very nice town. And usually we recommend clients, to arrive. We run the programs Saturday to Saturday. And so clients, our suggestion is to arrive at El Calafate on a Friday. So, they can, rest well, have a good night's sleep. At the same time, they can, El Calafate is a beautiful town, has a nice vibe, has a mix of Patagonia, architecture and traditions with, great gastronomy, great hospitality and hotels. And then on Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m., we pick up clients, at the hotel, and we take them to the lodge, which is around 4 hours and a half. Sometimes a little less, depends. They usually do a stop at a famous bar that, many years ago, the legend says that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, when they came to Patagonia, escaping from the Pinkerton, they were chasing them. So in a way they were in Patagonia, and so they were they tried to be legitimate ranchers, but after a while they decided to go back into bank robbery, and so in a way they robbed a bank, and then they lay low in this bar and hotel which is called La Leona. So many times, which is more or less halfway. So clients on the way in or out stop there for stop like do a restroom stop, but also to see the bar, which is cool and has a little bit of the history of when Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid stay there for a while, hiding from the police, and then you continue to Estancia Laguna Verde. So the clients basically arrive. We do an introduction. We show everybody their rooms, and then our manager Kari, explains to the guest, if I'm not there, for example, but usually it's Kari, our manager, explains to the guest, what's the usual schedule, like breakfast, the usual questions, Wi-Fi, etc., etc. And then our traditional starting meal would be homemade pizza, by our chef, which is a nice first meal. And then of course, we try a few drinks, but also with my father we like a lot of wine. So any guest that enjoys wine, we make it as part of our program, showing the guests, our large wine cellar. We have many wines. We also have a personal cellar that once a week we do a wine tasting there. So that's part of our program. And then clients, after they get settled, usually at 3 p.m. The guides are there ready to go fishing, in the first afternoon, which is like a kind of like a fine tuning and getting everybody's rods ready, but also seeing exactly what's the tackle that the client brought, and maybe checking if the line is correct and all that fine tuning that. So in a way, for the next day, everything is ready, all the rods are set up. Maybe they know if, for example, if someone has the wrong line for a rod, we have a lot of tackle to loan just in case. So in a way, but also the guide, in a way, we don't switch guides. So every guide has two clients, and in a way, we believe that it's better for the program that you have the same guide through the week, because the guide every day he knows better exactly what you like, what you don't like, where you have fished, which places you like better, and every day that knowledge improves, and also it helps create that special bond that always is very nice to have when you have a good guide, that in a way you become friends or close, and there's a lot of confidence and back and forth, which I think is important in a fishing trip, to have a guide that you can back and forth, and so all the guys speak good English. They are very experienced. They know the fishery in and out, but also they know the history of the place. Some people enjoy, for example, knowing about or learning about where they are from, but also, for example, knowing about the natives of the area, that there was quite a big settlement in the area many years ago, and so learning about the past of the area, sometimes trying to find artifacts, for example, very interesting. So and then so basically you fish every day from 9:30 till 7 p.m. Every day, and so basically the guide and breakfast usually 8:30 is served. Before that there's coffee, and that schedule of fishing, it's based on the fishing, of course, and so right. unlike brown trout that usually they are better to try to catch early and late in the day. The rainbow trout of Trowell and Barrancoso, they are most active during high sun hours. So that's why we don't need to wake up very early. So 8:30 breakfast, 9:30 you go fishing with your guide and truck, and so you can leave all your stuff in the truck. So no need to, because you will have the same guide and the same truck. So everybody leaves usually, nice. Unless so they leave the rods in the racks. They leave their maybe some things that so you don't want to be carrying back and forth anything, and you don't forget anything as well. And so you go fishing every day with the guide. And so every day you're planning. Maybe before going fishing, you start already talking with the guide. Okay, we are going today, and maybe the guide will ask, okay, if it's colder than the previous day, say, hey, are you bringing your extra layer? So in a way that it helps when you have experienced guys that they ask those questions or make those suggestions that allow you to have a better day of fishing.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think something that's really nice about your lodge as well is I believe you guys have that waiter room. So when people come back every day, they're able to hang their waders up, get those all nice and dry for the next day. So I know, staying comfortable down there, that definitely helps a great bit. And I'm
Yeah,
glad that you
totally.
touched on the wine as well, because I know Argentina is famous for your wine, and obviously for people that enjoy that, I think that's a nice perk as well for your program.
Yeah, we have of course many drinks, different beers, open bar.
Mhm.
Have a very nice. A few years ago, we built a very nice bar that we were missing. So I think now we have that pretty well covered. And so we have many international drinks, some from Argentina as well, traditional for Argentina culture.
Mhm.
And then wine. Every day we have different wines. Pair with the food you're having every day. So our chef, very very experienced, has a very good cuisine, as the French would say. uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a part. Of course, fishing is the main thing, but also we want to have all those details. And so it's more just a lot more than just a fishing experience. We want to have like a show our culture. So for example, usually Mondays we have the wine tasting that people come, all the guests come to our home. My father and myself, we have our house there, so we have a personal cellar that we introduce wines that we enjoy and like, and been kind of like stored there. It's a good place to store wines. Uh,
Mhm.
so we pair those with cheese from our province, from La Pampa. So cheese that are aged in the lodge there. That it's a good aging spot. And then on Wednesday we do the weekly asado, which is a night where we have everybody's there, the guides and the team, and so we do this big barbecue, usually with the lamb at the cross, which is a traditional way of cooking lamb. Also beef, sausages, but also it's a night of music, of kind of like interaction with all the guests, but all the staff, guides, and some nights are more quiet, while some other nights get a little wilder, and lots of music till late. So depends on each week, but that's something that we enjoy. Showing also our music, our how we do, which is the way we do the asados as we would do it in our home, with friends. That's in a way that's the idea of the barbecue, of the asado, to show a night that is very common in the interior of, not in Buenos Aires, but in the interior of the country, in rural areas. That's what you do. When you have friends at your home, you invite them for a big asado, with the neighbors, with your friends. And so that's how we like to do those asados. And then, every night, different meals, of course, different wines. So to make it a whole experience, not just fishing.
Yep. No, I think that that's a great way to put it, because it's so true. And we've had people come back and commented just on the hospitality and just how wonderful the food was, and, tasty wines. And like you said, just the full experience. You guys definitely pay great attention to detail in every aspect of it, not just the fishing. So I think that's really special. Um, we had a couple other questions roll in here. I'm going to find those really quick. So, Fred, thanks so much for your question. He was asking, do you supply the flies for fishing? And I know that some of your guides will tie flies, and we can put in a request for clients to be able to purchase one of those fly boxes. Could you tell me a little bit about the flies that anglers typically use while they're fishing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so always the guides will have plenty of flights, to use. I mean, there's never a shortage of flights. And
Mhm.
at the same time, we suggest clients to buy either in advance, or we have quite a nice fly shop at the lodge, so they can
Mhm.
buy some of the flights that are working there, or even, as you mentioned, pre-order, and so those are ready, on arrival to each guest that has ordered those. I think that is important to talk about flies. And for once, it's not just about how the flies are tied, but also the hook quality is of paramount importance. When you are dealing, or playing with big fish, strong fish that many times they may take you into the backing, and each part of your tackle becomes very important. So for example, things that happen and going a little bit out of flies, but like it's important. For example, when you many times you are not using your backing well. If you connect with a big fish at Strobel, you will see it fast, and so for that you want to, before the trip, you want to kind of like unspool all the backing and reel it in, carefully tight, so you are sure that there are no knots, no tangles, because happened to me many times. You have a nice fish, it's running, and all of a sudden you see your backing overlapped, and as soon as it stops, boom, that fish is gone. So that's something you don't want to happen, especially in that. Sometimes it could be a fish of a lifetime. You are connected to a 20-pounder, and those fish don't forgive anything. Anything that is not perfect. So that's important. You have to check once in a while your leader. And then when it comes to flies, you want to have flies that are tied with the most or the strongest hooks possible. And for that, even dry flies, you want those to be tied in heavy wire hooks, not just, and also of the top quality. So many times, commercial flies usually use cheaper or weaker hooks, and many times you have a fish, you are putting some pressure because going to the rocks, and then that fish is lost. And what happens is that the hook just slowly, but they bend, or sometimes they break, but sometimes they open just enough for the fish to be lost. So that would say that either if you are tying flies, we can help with tying recipes or details to tie the flies we are using. My first suggestion, or our guides and everybody, is to say, okay, use the best quality strong wire hooks possible. And any of the most important brands are good, like Masta, Owner, Japanese companies, like Daiichi, Tiemco, any of those heavy wire, that's perfect. And then flies that we use a lot, we use a lot of nymphs, for example, they use the Copper Johns, we use Prince nymphs, Fish and Tail, also a classic that works, and Hares here, those are 4 classic, and then we use, of course, being an important food source, Scats, that usually tied with a curved hook. You want those in your fly box always. And in the last years, we have been using a lot of balanced leeches, that anglers that were coming from fishing in Pyramid Lake and similar areas, they brought those to Strobel and found out that they worked a lot as in Pyramid, and so we started using those, and are very, very effective, very popular. So we use quite a lot of balanced leeches, and then we use regular leeches as well. Woolly buggers also good. And then when it comes to dry flies, any of those, kind of like we call those, making a joke, flip-flops, but Chernobyl ants, Fat Alberts, those work very good. There's another one called Gypsy King that works very good. And in the river, sometimes, of course, you need to have the right conditions, and not everywhere they will work, but sometimes, a mouse pattern, like the Moorish mouse, or there's another one called Mr. Hanky, and a few other ones similar, those are effective, but, you want to have not to try anywhere. You want to have the right conditions and maybe a fish position lower in the pool, so kind of like you skate the fly kind of like across and swinging away from the fish, but kind of coming close to the fish. So if you get a fish to take on a mouse, that's some of the best experience ever for me.
That'd be exciting.
And so that would be the most used flies. And then for example, my father and me, we like to fish a lot with drive if possible, and we use a lot a fly that not all the guys use, but in our case we like it a lot, which is the Parachute Madam X. That's a very, very good fly, especially if it gets conditions quite calm, and sometimes usually tends to be windy, but when it gets calm, you want to have a little smaller drive, and sometimes it's the most effective for those conditions. The fish can get very picky, and so a smaller, like a size 10, for example, a Parachute Madam X, for me is some of the most effective dries for those conditions.
Yeah, no, that's great information. Thank you. And I definitely appreciate the note about quality materials and making sure that you're checking your lines often, because it sounds like a little bit of proactivity can spare a lot of heartache, especially if you do hook into a really, really nice fish.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like your knots, the connection between backing and line, line to leader,
Mhm.
the knots in your leader. If you have a knot, cut your leader and tie it again. I mean, those are things that a big fish won't forgive that. It's gone.
No. Yep, they're gonna find the problem and break your
Yes,
heart a little bit.
absolutely.
Speaking of some conditions, so you're just touching on, conditions and using different flies in those. We had a question come in from Whitney, who asked, "What should one expect with the weather, wind, etc., or is there more settled months than others?" So I know that the season down there ranges from, I believe it's December through March. Could you tell a little bit about each month, maybe, or just kind of how those differ with the wind and the temperature?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so our season usually starts mid-October and goes till mid-April, okay? Yeah, of that, early and late season, of course, being, the last part of our spring, early season. So October, we are, opposite to the US and Northern Hemisphere countries. And so, our spring will be, September, October, November. In those months, it tends to be colder, but as you approach December and January, temperatures get milder. But it's still being southern Patagonia, it's not like you are going to be running around, in shorts and t-shirts, So it's always
Right.
tends to be cool temperatures, could be, occasionally in the mornings, maybe, or at night, freezing temperature, but during the day, it's quite a sunny location. So we always tell guests to be very careful with the sun, because you don't notice it, because it's cold or cool outside. But all of a sudden, you look in the mirror at night and you look like a tomato. You're red faced, and so important to take care of the sun. So our spring months will be, colder. And regarding wind, which is something that a quite common question, I would say that December, January, February, and March of the season will be the ones that have the milder temperatures and little bit less wind. But then it becomes a little bit of every week is different, and kind of like the winds. That's why always a week program is the best, because through the week you have a few days that can be windy, but then drops, and so you get a little bit of different ones. And yeah, sometimes a few weeks maybe more windy than others, and then there are other weeks that are completely calm through several days of the week. So it's a matter of a little bit of luck or conditions there. But usually you have a kind of like wind doing like a pattern like that, coming up and down, and then during the day the same thing. So the guides, they are very good at reading the forecast, and so they're usually are using special apps, and you have Wind Guru and a few other ones that usually they combine the apps to read the conditions, and always the suggestion will be according to the conditions of the fishing day. So always a good advice is to tell the guest to say, hey, listen to the guy, he will try to work around, the best conditions that are there. Always a good suggestion to follow the advice of an expert guide that, been there many days for many years, doing the same, learning from the area, from the fishery. And so they know, which places are better in certain times of the day, according to certain weather conditions and things like that, no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, your guides have been with you guys for a very, very long time, and they definitely know how to read the, environment. So they're going to make sure you get hooked into some good fish.
Yeah.
Another question that came in here was, can you cater to a solo angler, or do you have to have 2 anglers per guide?
No, we can do that, no problem. We can, and in Estancia Laguna Verde, we have 12 rooms for 12 anglers. So if you have, for example, including myself, like anywhere I'm traveling, I love my father, but still, if I can sleep in my single room because he snores and probably I snore too, so yeah, it's better.
Yep.
So we have 12 rooms for 12 guests, and so each guest gets a private room with a private bathroom, very comfortable, with plenty of space to put all your gear and spread around. At the same time, so if you have a solo angler, no problem, come in and staying in a single room, and it will be paired with other single or solo angler as well. So just sharing. So it would be a single room with shared guide. And then if someone would want to have a single guide as well, there's a surcharge or an upgrade charge to have a single guide just for you. That would be it. But if not, if you got a solo angler, very welcome. And it's very, very common that we have many clients that have been coming for many years that they're always traveling by themselves, and it's good. Usually there's a nice atmosphere at the lodge. Very friendly, very relaxed, and our staff very experienced, and they at the end of the week, many times new friendships are born there, and that's part of the
Absolutely.
of the idea of a fishing trip, not just going fishing, but also we have a very good friend and long-time client from South Africa that he says that fishing is actually about the people, not the fish, because because you go fishing, but at the end, the people are there, there's this common thing, this passion, to travel remote locations and go fishing, and we are all a little crazy,
Yeah.
Also, so I think that this good friend Clem, from South Africa, I always enjoy when he tells that, because I think it's very, very true. You go fishing and to catch fish, but at the same time, it's also about the people and the experience, not just going fishing.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. There's definitely something to be said about ending up in a different part of the world with a group of people that have the same passion, sharing really good meals and fun stories while you're out fishing for a full week practically. That I will definitely make some fun bonds. And then I guess getting into one other area here. So recently we brought on a program that some of you might have seen through our weekly newsletter, the Lago Strobel Lodge, which is a newer program that Luciano and his team have brought on. So could you share a little bit about that program and kind of how it differs from Estancia Laguna Verde?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so after we acquired the Estancia Laguna Verde in 2008, one of our main quests or goals with my father or improvements was to have more and more fishing available. So we started doing a lot of road work, to open up newer and newer fishing areas. So Strobel Lake, it's quite a huge lake. It's very, very big. It has more than 65 square kilometers, and so
Wow.
Not that easy to wrap your mind around that, but once you are there, you see how huge it is. So there's a lot of shoreline to fish, and also you have a lot of river to fish as well. So over the years, we spend a lot of energy and money as well to develop a very good network of roads to access a lot of locations. Some are closer to the lodge, some are more remote. And as part of that, we started list. So basically, of Strobel Lake, 4 estancias. Estancias, we say in Argentina, a big ranch will be estancia in Spanish in Argentina. And so 4 estancias, 4 ranches surround Strobel Lake or Jurassic. Probably around 1/4 each owns the shoreline of Estancia Laguna Verde. And so we started listening first to our neighbor. Estancia Laguna Verde is in the southeast of Strobel. And so we then list the following estancia to us that has the quarter basically this north and east, and then through this guy that we're good friends now, we list a few years ago the other properties. So in a way now we access 3 of the 4 properties that surround Strobel Lake, and that of course has a lot of shoreline. And so as part of that development and things we're doing, we thought it was going to be a good idea to have a lodge on the other side of Strobel. So that's when we came with the Lago Strobel Lodge, which is like a sister lodge Estancia Laguna Verde. Basically, similar program, similar trained staff. Some of our guides at Estancia Laguna Verde, sometimes they do weeks on the other lake, or the other lodge. Chef that also been trained in Estancia Laguna Verde, similar wines. So the only main difference, there's a different price, around $2,000 difference between one and the other. So the main difference would be that Estancia Laguna Verde provides single rooming, while Lagos Travel Lodge, so Estancia Laguna Verde is for 12 people with 12 rooms, single rooms, while Lagos Travel Lodge is for 8 people with 4 double bedrooms, all with ensuite bathrooms. So that would be the main difference. Then at Lagos Travel Lodge, we are fishing on the north and east shores of Travel. Also a ton of fishing to do. We have done in the last 2 years a lot more access in that area, and so it's a program that's been growing very nice. And maybe sometimes people enjoy kind of like smaller groups. They go there and kind of like they are just 8 all together. So maybe for that could be also happens in, for example, Brian been coming to Estancia Laguna Verde with full lodges, so that could happen also at Estancia Laguna Verde. But it has also, similar to Estancia Laguna Verde, a ton of fishing to do, lots of shoreline, lots of exploring to do. And so I think that would be, the main difference, single rooming and fishing the north and east, and a little bit of the west, actually, of Travel Lake. So very interesting as well. And so we have guests, for example, that come for a week at Estancia Laguna Verde, and then they add a week at Lagos Travel Lodge, or a half a week there. So in a way, they do 10, 11 days, mixing it up, with one or the other to finish different parts of Travel, the main reason.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I was going to mention that I had heard, you could do time at Estancia Laguna Verde for your week and then go switch over if you wanted to experience a different part of Jurassic, in a slightly different environment over there with, how the lodging is set up. So I think that's really cool. Definitely a lot of opportunity to explore different parts of the area. And yeah, I think it's nice that, you guys, you just honestly, just so many different options for people that, might be, just have different inclinations towards Estancia or Lagos Trobel. So that's great.
Yeah, luckily we have, over the years, we have many guests that became repeat clients. So yeah, we have around 60% repeat clientele every year. And yeah, it's not unusual that sometimes a client will come 1 year to Estancia Laguna Verde and the following year to Lagos Travel Lodge, or like I was saying, combining the two. That's also very good. So yeah, that's something you can perfectly do. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense because you're fishing different areas, similar fisheries, similar lake, but some of the terrain a little different from in the north and in the south of the lake. So it makes sense in that way.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Something I also wanted to mention is this upcoming January, Brian is going to be there hosting a trip. And I do believe that we have one spot left on that trip. So for the audience out there, if anyone has any interest in coming out to Jurassic and specifically spending it with Got Fishing, Brian, and some of the other clients that we have, that's going to be a really amazing opportunity. And I do believe that Brian is super interested in visiting now, Lagos Trobel and trying out that program. So I wouldn't be surprised here. We'll probably have it in an upcoming newsletter, hosted trip. I think, he's probably looking at dates or just kind of what other hosted trips he's got in the works. He's always up to something, always, planning on going to some parts of the world. So yeah, I'm sure that one's going to be in the works soon if it isn't already. And I guess outside of that, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Luciano, for your time and just talking through all of the programs that you guys have. They're definitely amazing. And, whenever we have guests come back from spending time with you and your team, they're just always, mind blown at just how special it is and many times, I know we have a lot of people that end up rebooking and wanting to go back next year or, a year or two down the line. So very special place for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, pleasure. And yeah, I hope, this is useful for the people listening. And any questions, of course, more than happy to answer, or maybe do it again in the future. More than, I think it's important to, be well prepared. And I think, gut fishing, that's an amazing job, of preparing the guests and, doing a trip with Brian as a host, a lot of fun. So I think that's highly recommended and something for sure that adds to the experience.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. If anybody's interested in booking, you can reach out to us via email. That's definitely a popular way. Reach out to info, that's info @gotfishing.com. And we're happy to check on dates or, just direct and also answer any questions like this. We try to be a resource at the very least, for anybody that just is curious about something. So we always enjoy that. And I guess you could describe us as kind of a partner with Estancia Laguna Verde and Luciano and his team. That's definitely what we try to be, is, transparent with information and just try to help out anybody that's looking to experience such an amazing place.
Yeah, I think that it's important to mention that, traveling internationally to a remote location, requires, going through different details. And I think that, working together with Gut Fishing, for sure, all those details, are taken very well into consideration. We have from, you want to have a seamless trip, you want to have, every detail taken care, from the perfect flights, the time, the arrival, the connection between the airport, and then the flight to El Calafate, same thing, how the transfer arranged. So you arrive, a van waits for you, they take you to the hotel, have a nice dinner arranged with a reservation. So we have a travel coordinator in our company that helps, along with, Kari and the team of Gut Fishing and Brian, and in a way to have, like I said, a seamless experience, to have all details. And once you arrive to the lodge, we want to make sure that, guests are happy, want to be flexible, want to feel everybody at home. So luckily many guests say something that we love, that many people say that they feel that it is their home away from home, which is for us, music to our ears, because that's something that very, very important, that people are, you want to have a relaxed ambience, it's not uptight, it's not we want to have like a fishing lodge, that's what we aim, and also make everybody feel comfortable and at home, feeling completely relaxed and enjoying, the company, the atmosphere, the lodge, the friendship. That's what we try to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you mentioning that, Luciano, because we definitely strive to communicate back and forth as many times as we need to, especially if, there's a client that's got dietary restrictions or, maybe physical limitations that they might be concerned about. And definitely with the travel logistics, anybody that might need assistance booking a hotel or a shuttle, us and the lodge, we all work to make sure that everything is completely seamless for when somebody shows up. So definitely part of the fun on our end to take care of guests that way. And it looks like we have one more question here. Fred is asking, how much is the box of flies, and can the guides show you to tie flies? That's a great question.
Yes, we have a few guides in our team that are really, really good fly tires, and one's name is Nano. You may see sometimes in our social media. Sometimes we do posts of his tying. Nano is an engineer. He studied to be an engineer and then became a fishing guide. And so, of course, being an engineer, all about precision. And so he's someone that always doing, kind of like tying for all the lodge, or someone trying to learn a specific fly, always, and then, we have several videos done by him, that we can share with someone wanting to tie flies in advance. We can share those details, like the fly recipe as well. So you have all the details like the right hook, the size, the materials. Sometimes you use a specific colors of dabbing, or those are important as well. To have the right colors. So yeah, we are more than happy to show everybody what we use, and at the same time the team of guides can really show them how to tie anything that's been working or they are using, and little tricks that sometimes make a difference, how the fly work, for example.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. I actually didn't know about the videos, but I think that's a super fun resource that you guys offer, because yeah, we definitely have people that they tie their flies and take a lot of pride in that, and yeah, just that's part of the fun to prep for one of these adventures.
Totally, yeah. You want always to be prepared, and yeah, if you are someone that ties flies, yeah, we can share all the details, and yeah, those videos are helpful to kind of like show if I don't know, for example, a leech, you want to have the right length of the tail, or if you are weighted or not weighted the fly, bead head or not non-bead head, and all those details that help, and also how to tie a fly that will last after catching a few fish, and not coming apart after one or two fish. Little tricks on how to tie those materials. I think that could be helpful, and help have a productive trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess I would like to kind of wrap up this awesome digital event by reminding the audience that, if you do have any other questions about Jurassic or just want to pick somebody's brain, you can definitely call us anytime. Our number, I'll put it in the chat here as well before we leave, but you can call 208-630-3373. And that's actually Brian, who's now been to Jurassic several times. So he, has a pretty good pulse on the ins and outs of the program. And I know he always enjoys going down and spending time with your team and, yeah, just socializing. But the other thing to mention is if you're interested in booking, I mentioned our email info, that's info @gotfishing.com. But you can also take a peek at our website. We've got both of these programs there with a little bit more detailed trip pages. If information and reading through that and looking at photos is kind of the way that you like to go. And we also have our weekly newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed to that, we try to feature different programs every week. And oftentimes we have these programs up and coming just because of the frequency of Brian's hosted trips to Estancia Laguna Verde and Lago Strobel. So yeah, I would encourage you guys to sign up for that if you haven't already. It's a great little resource, and always promoting different things about these trips there as well. So yeah. Again, Luciano, I just want to say thank you so much for spending the time and just answering these questions. And I hope that this is something that we can do again in the future.
Yeah, sure. Anytime. Yeah. Hopefully this is helpful and information. And yeah, of course, always open to talk with anyone about programs, details, flies, fishing. Always enjoy it. And that's something that we are very passionate with my father. And so yeah, we have a common thing with we just other fishermen doing something that we enjoy and are very much passionate about it. So happy, we are always game to talk fishing anytime.
Yeah, well, and it definitely shines just with the reviews that we get of people that have gone and experienced your program, the care that you guys put into the detail and just taking care of everyone and their needs and making sure that they have everything that they need for a successful trip with your team it really does show. And I would say it's one of the top, if not, the best program, some of the best programs that we have as far as, just the care and, it's just, you guys deeply care about people when they show up, and it really does show.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we do it with a lot of love and care, and we want every guest to return home, with a really fulfilling experience, and not just fishing, but also like a cultural experience, feeling at home, and hopefully, coming back, many times. We enjoy a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate it too, because it's a lot of, I guess it allows us to breathe easy when we're sending people to Argentina. We know that they're going to be taken care of from the minute they step off the plane. So it's always good confidence there.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining. We definitely hope to do more events like this in the future. And yeah, we hope to hear from you guys. And if you're interested in booking, reach out, please do. And Luciano, thank you again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.